Hey everyone, welcome to the KE Report and a company update from Inflection Resources. The company is focused in Australia with an exploration agreement with AngloGold Ashanti. Some drill results for us to talk about recently from the Trangie and Duck Creek projects, both in New South Wales. We are chatting with Alistair Waddell. He is the president and CEO of Inflection Resources. The company is traded on the CSE under the symbol AUCU and on the OTCQB under the symbol AUCUF. Now, Alistair, let's talk about these drill results that were released February 4th. Trangie was the focus of this release simply because of the headline hole being 54 meters at 0.37 grams per ton gold and 0.07% copper. This is from 194 meters down hole. I have to say, Alistair, that the stock reacted very well to this. It closed up 32% that day. It was up almost 50% at one point that day and has since really just moved sideways on the back of no other news being released. Alistair, look, this market right now is rewarding good drill results, but these drill results usually we're seeing are 200-gram meter holes. So they really capture the market's attention. When I saw this headline hole, it didn't capture my attention that much. So when I saw the stock up almost 50% at a point, I was quite frankly a little surprised. But I'm not a geologist. So can you explain to us what this hole really proved, obviously, to the market to get that kind of buying coming in?
Thanks, Corey. Yeah, I can certainly expand on that and hopefully put a little bit more light on your points there. So you have to really put the results into context. And what we're exploring for in New South Wales, these are alkalic copper gold porphyry systems. And specifically in New South Wales, they call them pencil porphyries due to their sort of geometry. They're very tall, essentially skinny, pencil-like bodies that are typically gold rich. And the key thing about these porphyry systems is they often have very distinctive halos in terms of the geochemistry in and around these porphyry systems. And what we announced to the market was a series of intervals from one hole number 23 in our Trangie project. And as you mentioned, there's sort of lots of 0.2s and 0.3s and 0.4 grams per ton gold intervals over basically the length of the hole. And what really got us excited about this hole was these are grades that you would typically see in proximity to some of the known major mines in this specific belt of rocks, this Macquarie Arc belt of rocks that we're exploring. So you combine the gold values with the multi-element geochemistry, the rocks, the characteristics of the rocks in terms of the alteration that we're seeing in the core, and you bring all that together and we consider it highly significant. So it's not a home run drill intercept. It's perhaps that 100 or 200 gram meter intercept that you referenced. But really, these are very exciting results. And the technical team at Inflection and our partners at AngloGold are very excited about what we've hit. So although they're not headline numbers per se, they're considered very, very significant for what we're trying to achieve here. And that make a big porphyry discovery in northern New South Wales, Australia.
Well, Alistair, just to that point, maybe you could expand upon the approach you're taking here using modern science, that this is pretty far undercover. And so people know it's a very prolific belt, but in this particular area, the old timers wouldn't have known about this because this is, I think, like 180 meters under the cover. So maybe just speak to the targeting you use to come up with this. And now that you have some smoke, how are you going to follow up and target the fire for these pencil porphyries?
So we're exploring this belt of rocks called the Macquarie Arc that's host of some of Australia's biggest mines. The biggest one in the belt is the Cadia operation. This is Newmont Mining's flagship operation. This is actually Australia's largest gold mine and I believe copper mine as well. Plus there's a number of other huge true tier one scale deposits in the belt. So we're exploring the northern extension of this belt where it disappears under cover. And as you mentioned there, we're under about 180 meters of cover at Trangie. So we go about targeting these areas using airborne geophysical surveys. For the most part, it's a magnetic survey where we're looking for sort of the magnetic properties of the rock. In this case at Trangie, There's a strong association of gold with magnetite, which shows up very nicely in the airmore magnetic survey. So we use geophysical methods for essentially targeting at a project level. And then once we're down to sort of that scale, we use drilling technology to sort of prospect below the cover. And this is a little bit of the secret sauce there. We use relatively old technology called mud rotary drilling to drill down through this sedimentary cover. And we can drill through that very cheaply and cost effectively. And once we get to the prospective basement rocks that essentially host these deposits, about 180 meters below the cover, we then transition to traditional diamond core drilling. So it's a little bit of a challenge looking through the cover, but it also created the opportunity. We're exploring this prolific belt in a fabulous mining-friendly jurisdiction. And when we started this endeavor a number of years ago, the whole area was completely free of claims. So it's enabled us to secure the biggest land position in this northern covered extension of the belt. We control about 50 to 60% of the belt, but it's all just masked with this sedimentary cover. So it's a combination of all these things that's created the opportunity, despite being a little bit challenging. But yeah, we've partnered up with AngloGold and we're working our way through a whole series of targets across about 200 miles of strike length of this belt.
So what follow-up work is coming here? Do you have any more drill results at the assay labs? Is there anything that you've heard from Anglo about follow-up drilling from this initial drill program?
So we have released all the results on that February the 4th news release. So we've just essentially putting our thoughts together in terms of exactly where we want to position the next drill hole. So I'm going to be talking about that over the coming days and weeks a little bit more. You'll see some news from the company coming out talking more about this. But yes, we're planning a series of holes in and around that hole 23 at Trangie and see if we can extend this zone of mineralization at depth and hopefully stepping out as well. All the indications are we've got a system based on the alteration and the gold and copper values getting in the core. So let's see if we can tag the higher grade portion of one of these systems.
All right. Well, fingers crossed you lock into some of that higher grade porphyry system on the follow-up program. But you also had some information in the press release from February 4th about Duck Creek. You had 4 step-out holes. You drilled over 3,000 meters. Put a little color around some of these step-out holes. Some of these were pretty big step-outs too, Alistair.
Yes, absolutely. So Duck Creek is one of the projects also part of the AngloGold agreement, and that we published late last year, one of the holes there, hole 20, and that was altered intensely with porphyry style mineralization. Again, alteration you would typically see outboard of one of these big porphyry systems, and that got us all very excited. And as you mentioned there, we just published the results of 4 step-out holes. And we stepped out in a very systematic manner, but in a large distance between about 600 meters and 1,100 meters from that hole 20. And what it did, it very much demonstrated it was part of a huge system. We intercepted the same favorable alteration in all 4 holes, and as we stepped out to the north, south, east, and west. But really, the south and to the east, those 2 step-out holes really demonstrated a continued thickness of intense alteration. So it looks like it's sort of fading out a little bit to the north and to the northwest, but very much open to the south and southeast. So still a huge area of alteration that's at some point is going to require some additional infill drilling at depth, probably in and around the hole 20 that got us all excited there. So still very much open. We've got a little bit sidetracked with Trangie, which we just talked about there. But, we're still very, very keen to get back into Duck Creek, and hopefully we get AngloGold to put some drill meters back into that while we're drilling at Trangie.
Okay, let's tie this into that exploration agreement that you have with AngloGold. I'm going to post the table from the news release, the updated table that shows Project 1 designated as Duck Creek. That was done in May of last year. Still, potentially 4 more projects that the company can designate to move into that phase 2 exploration. Any insights on what Anglo is thinking, or even how far they are through this phase 1 program to when they need to designate more projects as phase 2?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So phase 1 is the regional sort of drilling program. So we presented a large portfolio of targets to AngloGold, which we've been systematically drilling over the last 18 months to 2 years now. And at the end of that phase one, AngloGold retains the right to select up to 5 projects to move into phase two. Now, we did tweak the agreement to bring in the Duck Creek project a little bit earlier as a phase two project, but we're coming up to the end of phase one shortly. And that's the point in which they can then select up to an additional 4 projects. Now, we have got a little bit of guidance on that, but we're still waiting from official notification from AngloGold in terms of which projects they wish to move forward with. So please watch out for news over the coming days and weeks regarding that. But we're very close to the end of phase one, and I think it's becoming very apparent which ones will hopefully move forward into phase two, with Trangie obviously being one of those. So yeah, watch this space a little bit. Watch out for the news regarding that, but I can't comment too much on specifically which ones as yet.
Well, and Alistair, I think another key point is that you're the operators on these and you get paid a management fee from AngloGold to do the work. So maybe speak to how that helps the financial strength of Inflection.
So that's a very key aspect of this agreement for us, and it's been a real godsend over the last couple of years when the markets have been kind of challenging. So we receive a 10% management fee for operating and executing these exploration programs. And, as phase one is 10 million, these are all Australian dollars, 10 million Australian dollars. And so we've received about $1 million of management fee just from that phase one program, plus operating the phase two Duck Creek program as well. So it's been tremendously helpful, and that more than covers all of our corporate overheads. And, our treasury position is very similar to what it was about 18 months, 2 years ago now, and we're still in great shape and no need to go back to the capital markets any time in the foreseeable future. So it's been a wonderful agreement, and AngloGold have been tremendous partners to work with, and hopefully it will continue for a long time.
Alistair, let's talk news flow then, because it's one of the things I think that's held Inflection back a little bit, is that there just isn't a ton of news that the company releases. The last time you released a drilling update was October, and the stock popped on the back of that, similar to what happened after this February news release. But then there wasn't any news until February. I know there's a lot of work going on at these projects, but is there any ability for the company this year, preferably, to issue some more news, keep everybody a bit more updated with all the work that's going on, especially on this exploration front?
Yeah, no, I'm very mindful of that, and we've had that feedback a number of times. We are a little bit governed with AngloGold. It is a partnership, but all of our news is essentially signed off, or is signed off by AngloGold. So, there is a preference to sort of batch results and not necessarily publish results on a hole-by-hole basis. So that's really what's driving the timelines of the news flow, is that sort of that partnership with AngloGold. So, it is a fair point, and something we'll work on improving. But there's a few different news releases in the works right now that will obviously deal with the end of phase one and perhaps projects beyond that as well. So again, just watch this space.
Okay, I know a lot of investors wondering which other projects will be designated for phase two. And look, you do have other assets too, right? This is more or less the prospect generator model. So I'm sure you're working up some other assets. If we get any more information on those, please follow up with us and we'll have you back on the show. Alistair Waddell, again, President and CEO of Inflection Resources. Click that link in the show notes to visit the Inflection website. Alistair, thank you very much for this update.
Thank you again. Thanks for having me.